Hello and welcome to the Sami Parvez show. Today I'm joined by Mario Estocco, who is an independent candidate for this Montreal by-election. We will be talking about his goals for this Montreal by-election and also electoral reform. We will also be talking about Rhinostraw Party and the party goals. Thank you so much, Mr. Estocco, to joining me on the Sami Parvez show. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. And as we were saying off camera, I was watching your discussion with Donovan and a couple of the other candidates earlier this morning, and getting familiar with your show. And I kind of enjoyed that. And I'm looking forward to our conversation this afternoon as well.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me here and also watching our shows, especially with Donovan. Donovan is my buddy. What Donovan called us like the old couple. Like I know him from like Toronto St. Paul's by-election when he was running as an independent candidate from our longest ballot committee, but he's also from Rhinostraw Party. Like from Alberta. He's saying we are coming together from different parts of the world. Like it seems like this longest ballot committee is making it is making us come together.
It is, and yep, and the committee is really its own entity, but quite a few of the Rhinoceros Party members have kind of latched onto it because we kind of like their approach to trying to improve awareness of Canadian politics amongst people, and maybe get a little bit more discussion going on about how government works or not, and maybe what we could do to make things a little bit better. So that kind of attracted quite a few of us. I'm a Rhino member as well, and I ran in the St. Paul election. If you look at the poll numbers, I actually finished a little bit further ahead than Donovan. So. Yeah, I teased him about that, and he said, well, I had an advantage because my name, I think, was just below the conservative candidate. So I think either people were checking the wrong box or for some crazy reason, I got a few more votes than he did. But I think his assessment is correct because I didn't really do a lot for that to earn those votes other than getting my name on the ballot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I think Donovan just got eight votes, and he said he's pleased that he received some votes from Torontonians, as he's based in Alberta. Like he's more proud to be Alberta. And are you also based in Alberta?
No, I'm in Waterloo.
Oh,
I'm not far from
Oh,
you.
you are in my
You're in
neighborhood.
Kitchener. Yes, we're neighbors.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, it's great. I hope it means we can have a coffee together once you have free time.
Right. Actually, I was saying I should have just come down to your studio.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Next time.
Okay, sure. And so why are you running in this by-election in Montreal?
Right. I know you've interviewed a couple of people already, and I guess my answer is pretty similar. I guess I want people the voters, to start paying a little bit more attention to elections and who's running. Personally, I think people should consider that maybe some of our long-time established parties are too comfortable in their position in the public eye, and they should, the voters should reconsider if there are other viable parties in Canada, or maybe even people need to come together and create their own parties that better represent people's interests. So, I mean, there's a few options there. And my main purpose is just to get a conversation going, and let's see if that gives us some traction and maybe motivate either the existing parties to end their complacency and maybe get voters just being a little bit more demanding of who they put into office and what kind of a job they do for them.
And if Mario, don't if you don't mind, can
Mhm.
I ask you like about your background? Like, I mean, what are you doing like for your normal life, and then what
Right.
you to get in politics?
Well, my background. Let's see. I come from an immigrant family. I'm originally from Brazil. I lived in Canada most of my life. I was educated here. Um, I went to Conestoga College and University of Waterloo here. My degree is in economics, and from Conestoga College, I have a business management diploma. I worked in commercial banking for a while. I was a teacher, and I've been retired almost a year now. And so I guess I've been looking for a little bit of a hobby. um, um, I kind of like the attitude of the Rhinoceros Party, and it kind of drawn me in, and I've been kind of slowly increasing my involvement with them.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear that. And retirement, like just giving something to the society, like
That's right. I mean, and you know, as a retired teacher, I guess I'm kind of walking the talk I used to give in class, which is, I feel as citizens, we are the government, and I had a little chart here I was going to share with you, but the typical government structure that people present to their students, often like the voters are nowhere in that chart anywhere.
hmm.
And, it kind of ends with the regent up at the top, right?
Hmm.
King Charles now. And that's not really, realistically how it works in Canada. Uh, that whole hierarchy is kind of fictitious, right? And true a long, long time ago, but it doesn't really reflect reality right now. And being a representative democracy, our representatives are really, what the electorate want to see happening in Ottawa, and they're making decisions on our behalf. And if we're putting the wrong people there, it's really our fault, and we really should accept that responsibility rather than saying, Justin Trudeau this, or Brian Mulroney did that, but really, we ask for them to act on our behalf. Um, it does raise the question of all the promises politicians like to make and break, which is why the Rhinoceros Party tends to mock that concept about. And we're famous for outlandish promises, right? But we also qualify that where we promise to break every promise we make. So in that regard, we're probably the only honest party that actually admits to the fact that, hey, once we're elected, we're going to do what we're going to do anyway, and there's not much you can do to stop us. And that's the reality of giving, especially majority government power.
Mhm. Yeah, and so as you also, I have two questions. Like actually, you brought up like first with as you have been a teacher and you have a degree in economics and you have been a uh, 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 you have been an instructor at the University of Waterloo. So first I need to
Oh,
ask.
no, I was an elementary school teacher. I didn't
No,
teach
not
it.
a school teacher.
Yeah.
No, like I was saying that you are an instructor at the University of Waterloo,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I
No, I wasn't an instructor at the university. I studied at the university. I taught for the public school board here.
Oh, you taught public school.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, my apologies. Yeah, I you said like you graduated in economics. Okay, let's put it that way.
Right.
So you
Right.
are a graduate in economics. Like so you have a great knowledge of how economics work or how economy works. Like
Should
so.
work.
Yeah. eh, So so um so uh so how do you see like Canadian economy? Like is should immigrants be blamed for the rising of cost in the housing crisis?
Should immigrants be blamed for the housing crisis? I don't think so. Okay. I think, and I was contemplating because you told me you were going to want to discuss this, and the housing crisis has. I mean, certainly, it's one factor, but to blame all immigrants or recent immigrants or immigrants in the last 10 years for our housing crisis is it's unrealistic. Okay, and I know some of the parties are kind of taking that stance. It's a nice attack on the Liberal Party in power right now, but that's not really what's going on. There's an affordability issue. There is also, as Doug Ford, our premier here in Ontario, likes to say, there are issues with getting building permits and how that can be expedited and so on. But the fact is, there are many companies holding on to huge amounts of land inventory, and they're actually just not developing it. It's a business model, right? You're not going to flood the market with real estate because you're affecting your profits. Right now, if you already own the land or you've owned it for a while, your ability to sell it at an insanely high price is super profitable, even with the increasing costs of building materials. So people are, building at a nice, slow pace, well below what the market demands. And there's very little incentive for private businesses to increase that. Even I think people who are currently homeowners, and I'll use my case as an example. My wife and I become empty nesters, and when we purchased this home, we had adult children that were still living with us, and they've moved on and they're getting married. So we don't need all this space in this house, and it would make great sense for us to buy something a little smaller. Fewer maintenance costs, easier for us to maintain, and so on. But we have zero incentive to sell because where would we move to? And smaller homes are actually, for the amount of floor space and so on that you get, aren't much cheaper than the home we have right now. So makes no sense. We wouldn't release that much capital for us to travel and do other things anyway. So, and that's why you don't see very many for sale signs out there. Mm-hmm. Right? So unless you have to move because of your job is in another city or financial distress, sometimes people just can't afford to pay the mortgage for whatever reason. You're not going to sell. You're just not going to sell. I think even if you are in some financial distress, people are tending to subdivide their homes and rent basements and that sort of thing. So make homes generate income that way, which is maybe not your preferred way of doing it, but that's interestingly enough, that's actually one of the ways that we're increasing the housing stock. But generally, the housing market is stagnant, and just lowering interest rates is not going to do the trick either.
Mhm. Yeah, it means all are together, like big businessmen and the politician, like elected officials, like who are especially ministers. Like it seems like they are doing a business together. Like if you allotted a land, like if like a real estate person is it, so they should build the houses. Like they should not just keep it for a while, then sell it again for a huge price.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we live in the free market, and this isn't the first time in Canadian history where housing prices have gone through the roof, and affordability is crazy, and people need two incomes, sometimes three or four. You see friends buying homes together, that kind of thing, or you have extended family living together. So yeah, that happens. I think if you go back into the mid to late 70s, that was happening. But at some point, people are going to want to rake in their profits, and construction kind of starts up again. Are there barriers from the municipalities and so on? Sure, there are. Absolutely. So, yeah, there needs to be a bit of a coordinated effort. And this is the caution I would give to all voters. You see politicians, they famously declare some policy is going to be that magic pill that will cure all evils. And, and much like some of the commercials you see on television, right? If you buy Dr. Hole's whatever massager or pill or magnetic bracelet, it's going to cure all your pains and whatever ails you. Politicians have learned from that, and they love to give out those nice little simple messages, and they will make those promises. But once you and I wish the media would do this a little bit more. I guess kind of what you're doing here, and I applaud you for that, is probe a little bit into, okay, well, how exactly are you going to make that work? And get some experts in on the discussion. I kind of enjoy Steve Paikin on TVO quite a bit, because that's exactly what he does, is he brings in people, and they discuss issues from a variety of angles, and and sometimes you notice that, hey, policy should look a bit like what that panel was discussing, because it's not just one factor that's going to make everything all right, and it's also not going to be immediate, especially something like construction and building new homes. And then there's another question. Not everybody wants to live in a condo, right? And the majority of construction, at least in our area and other urban centers, is going towards condos. When you consider the size of Canada, that's a little bit of a shame in the waste. And it certainly doesn't reflect how people that grew up in Canada envisioned their adult lives and raising their children. And I can't blame them. It does raise other questions, and the whole immigration question is, I think that's quite multifaceted, and the rates of immigration reflect a few other issues. It's all economic, and I don't know if I want to bore all your viewers with that detailed discussion. Maybe another time I could just dedicate an episode to that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much for a long, brief answer. But so what do you predict? will we get back to normal like what we were back in, like just take like before pre-pandemic, like the everything was normal, quite normal, not very normal, but yeah, we were it mean we could afford what we needed, and the housing market was not like this as it is. It seems like every day it's keep getting worse, despite what liberal government is suggesting sometime, like increase the taxes uh, or the interest rate, then reduce it. So it seems like nothing happening. And so
Yeah.
how do you see in the sense of economics? So are we
Okay.
get no,
Yeah. So I think it's next week. There's going to be another rate review, and indications are that inflation is kind of under control. It's within the Bank of Canada parameters, and they're looking for an inflation rate of around 2%. And why 2%? That's a long discussion as well.
yeah,
Um, Inflation is not necessarily a bad thing, but what happened at the pandemic, and this is the lingering issue, not just for Canada but around the world, is do you remember all those payments that the government was dishing out for people to stay at home
yeah,
and keep the economy afloat and so on? Well, um, that how that worked is a mystery to a lot of people.
mhm,
Not a mystery so much to the government because they have an ability to do something that the rest of us can't, which is just to print money.
yeah,
They just issued currency. Okay.
mhm,
Okay. Um, why don't they normally just do that and keep doing that?
mhm,
Because there's an after effect, and the after effect is inflation. Sorry, is inflation. And that's the problem we're having right now. Okay. For a lot of businesses and the corporations and so on, it's actually a good thing for them because they can, for the most part, many of them can just pass on their costs to their customers. Okay. Not all businesses have that luxury. Certainly, small business people will be very quick to tell you that their prices are going up, but their customers can't afford to pay more. And that is what the problem is. Customers, you and I, people that are on salary, our purchasing power has essentially been reduced. Okay. In order to pay for the pandemic, the average person, you and I, basically took a pay cut. That's why you haven't heard too many companies really, really whining and complaining about the pandemic payouts. Okay. It's actually made their situation better. Okay. Because the government essentially lowered everybody's salaries and paychecks by, and I'm sorry, I don't have an exact number for you, but something like 10 to 15%. And um, that's good for them. It makes them more competitive globally, and so on. Okay. Now, you know, our the Canadian dollar's taken a little bit of a hit because the U.S. Didn't quite go to the extent that we did. The Europeans also took a bit of a hit in their financial markets, but I mean that's something that'll work itself out over the next 4 to 5 years. Hence, why you're noticing that a lot of unions are suddenly putting a lot of pressure on their employers, and you're going to be seeing a series of strikes like we have currently with the rail workers, and that's going to be very common. Guaranteed civil servants will be out en masse. They're going to see doctors, nurses, and so on needing to push for higher wages simply to make up for the lost purchasing power that they've had in the last few years.
mhm. And yeah, like it means everyone now need a raise, like it means strikes are ongoing, and we know like in the rail
Exactly.
and also the other concern too, like safety
Yeah,
concern.
it's not so much that food prices have gone up. It's you need more dollars to buy the same amount of food because the value of that currency has
Yeah.
shrunk.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
comparatively, I don't think the food prices really have changed that much. Yes, there is some price gouging, and yes, some companies are really taking advantage of people's expectations to pay more because of inflation is here. And we go through this cycle periodically as well. Consumers expect to pay more, so they do. Right.
Yep.
And even businesses that don't necessarily need to raise their prices, they will anyway.
Hmm.
So, and that's
Yeah,
what will happen.
and also like we also saw like since 2020 like MPs like Prime Minister himself got like a big pay raise. It seemed like it
Oh,
does not make any sense, and we saw what New Zealand Prime Minister and our cabinet ministers did. They took a cut like of I believe around like 20%, and I don't recall there was another. Prime Minister or President, some I think from South American countries, who also
yes.
took a cut. Like it seems like they are more caring about their people than what we have in Canada. Don't you think so?
And there's your issue, right? And the issue many of us are looking at. Um, isn't it time to kind of sit back and kind of look, okay, how do we select people to represent us? Who are these people? How can we attract the best persons for the job?
Mhm.
Because quite frankly, and this is something that people don't typically do, if you really, really look at our representatives' resumes, they're not particularly impressive.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to pick on Justin Trudeau simply because his is probably the best known, even without looking. But he was an elementary school teacher, not for a long time,
Yeah.
right? Um, what was his degree in? Honestly, I don't even know. Okay, um, and what other experiences did he have in life? Okay, well, he was in a privileged position growing up with his dad. Um, I can't fault him for being a good statesman. He certainly learned some lessons from being around political figures, traveling the world, and so on. So, in that regard, he's qualified for the job. But in terms of being a deeper thinker and a leader and being able to evaluate the different options that come to him, I don't know. I might question that a little bit. Sorry, I should have turned off my phone. As I was saying, and that's another point I'd like to make too about even if it was a very academic person in politics or economics or business. The reality is this. Okay, government is probably the most complex organizations we have in existence right now. Far more complex than a Tesla or a Boeing, Bombardier, who has its hands in so many different kinds of industries.
Yeah.
Government kind of has responsibilities for high tech, and then education, transportation, immigration, economics, international trade, international relations, and you think, who on this planet is capable of wrapping their head around all of those issues reasonably well? And personally, I think no one. It's too much. And what we have tended to do, and we still kind of have this mentality from maybe 300 to 400 years ago when our institutions kind of evolved, and they haven't changed that much. And we're expecting too much from a party leader. And I personally would like to see Parliament functioning a little bit more as a collaborative system, right? Where ministers are actually qualified people in their fields. So, a minister of transportation, has had lots of experience with transportation issues. Minister of Immigration actually understands some of the geopolitical issues out there, the economics of the nation, and there's going to be lots of overlap where different departments need to discuss conflicting issues, right? So, and we just were discussing one before. We have this issue of limited housing, but we also need people to grow our economy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do you balance the two? And so there's a lot of fumbling that's happening, and that's where people complain, right? Policies are put in place. They look sexy on the headlines,
Yeah.
and they fumble in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, and if any of your viewers are university students, some of the students, because I remember this when I was in school, we just studied this particular issue, and the government institutes a policy, and it's doomed to fail. A good example is privatizing the electrical grid. Why would you do that? It makes no sense, right? And even the internet that we're using here, the wires are owned by either Bell Canada or Rogers, and but then there's 7, 8, 10 different companies that use the same connections. They just rent them from those people and to provide the same service. And it's kind of a phony competitive system, right? Mm-hmm. That would probably work a little bit better just with reasonable regulations, right? And but some governments don't like to do that because it requires some expertise, and that's what we kind of I would encourage voters to do is look for expert governments or politicians that are open and willing to say, you know what, I don't know all this stuff, but I know I'm going to be recruiting these people who are knowledgeable, and they're going to help me in my government. And I'm just a figurehead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I look good in a suit.
and you said it depends on the people who are voting. We should also blame them. It is not just Justin Trudeau's fault or his caucus part.
Absolutely not.
We just brought them in. We just voted for them. But my question is, as you are.
Well, actually, let me ask you and your viewers this question, right? Mm-hmm. Did you vote for your local representative, mm-hmm. or did you vote for the party leader? And that's an easy question to answer. Do you even know who your local representative is? Or did you just go down the ballot and find liberal, conservative, NDP, or whatever flavor party you subscribe to, maybe rhinoceros, and got to put a plug in there once in a while, right? Anyway, did you just vote for a party? And what has your local representative done for you lately? Yep. And the only ones you hear from are the ones who get a ministry to manage. The rest, I don't know what they do, honestly. Yep. Almost 100% of the time, they just vote whatever their party votes. So why do we have all these people in Ottawa? So are they even representing you?
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like we made a it means we made our mind, like just a psychological setup. Like if we are a liberal, it means my father, grandfather, or mother, like a grandmother, or
Yes.
my ancestors, they were voting just liberal. We have to vote liberal, or if they were voting conservative, we should vote for conservative. We should not change, and that's why these folks are just being in the government. So that's why, and also like then when these party choose, like they will just give take it to those are closer to them, like they have a close connection. And what we saw, like if we are always like blame, like if recently in LaSalle by election in Montreal, like the candidate was in and picked by Justin Trudeau, like he just does not want to lose on that particular riding. So he just picked up a city councillor to have
Sure.
a strong voice there, like.
Sure.
And also we should not just blame like a liberal party or liberal leader. We also
No.
need to also see what's happening in the conservative side. And we know, like I'm pretty sure you are watching like closely. Last, I believe in 2022, there was a by election in Oxford riding in Ontario, like the leadership intervened, like person
Oh,
like
yes, yes,
there,
yes. Now, yes.
a leader, opposition, it means house leader, like from conservative side. And he endorsed that person. I think his name is Arpan Khan, something like that, like I mean he was not from there. There was another two other candidate. He won, I don't recall the MP of conservative from like Oxford, who was serving for a long time. Then I believe his daughter wanted to be representative too, and there was another. So that person, like then I believe
Oh,
it.
here in my mind is the more outrageous example
Yes, please.
of all the things that you just listed.
Yeah.
Um, 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 uh, Mr. Singh, okay,
Yes.
the leader of the NDP,
Hmm.
he couldn't win his seat in Toronto.
Yes.
And so right now, he represents a riding in British Columbia,
Parvez.
who has, typically been an NDP, a safe riding,
Yes.
and he won that riding.
Hmm.
So what does Jig need?
Yeah.
Why is he representing that riding,
Hmm.
right? And going back to the longest ballot. What
Yes.
business do I have running to represent the people of Montreal?
Hmm.
So, and I know some people are going to be a bit upset because other writings where we've had longest ballots, the comment was the same. Why are all these people running in our by election? And I agree with you people. The 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 rules don't make a lot of sense,
Yep. And
right?
but do you think this longest ballot would make an impact, like force elected official to change the rule? But as they were being elected from the same rule, so why
Oh, I'm
do
sure they'll.
they
Yeah,
change it?
I'm quite certain they're going to change the rules somehow. And somewhere there's some discussion about that right as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's going to be a couple of things that'll be happening. Like there was a time, right? You had to put $1,000 down
Mm-hmm.
to have your name included in the ballot, and that was deemed restrictive for a number of reasons. Mainly, you're limiting who might potentially run for office only to people that can financially afford it. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be putting $1,000 to run in this election, but um, but that's been struck down by the Supreme Court of Canada. So that rule got removed. But I'm sure they can come up with something else, right? And it'll probably be technical and bureaucratic, just making it more cumbersome for people to run, which won't affect the major parties at all. They have a huge infrastructure. The Rhinoceros Party, it's me and a half a dozen guys. Sorry, I shouldn't say guys, people who we just volunteer some of our time, and we do our best to promote the party and encourage people to vote and participate in the democratic process. But we don't have secretaries. We barely raise enough money to keep our website alive. And that's our biggest expense. Why do major party candidates need thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to run campaigns? When really all you need is what we have in front of us is a little bit of technology, a discussion in public mediums. People can listen to this interview later on and judge some of my opinions and ideas on their merits. And hopefully, some of the people in LaSalle might go, geez, you know what? Maybe this guy is somebody that will do a decent job for us, even though he doesn't speak French. But thank God there's Google Translate now.
Yeah, but do you think again? I think I'm going to ask you again same question. So it means, do you think it will make?
Oh, that's right. If it will impact.
Or will it take time?
It's for the long run. Like I don't think things change from one day to the next. Okay? And it's true with how elections are run, and I think it's true for a lot of our social issues. I think for people to expect an immediate solution, especially from government, it's not going to happen, right? Because the government that you're trying to change is public opinion, right? The general public, the people that are of voting age, and I think we've gotten to some complacency there, where like we said, what's the path of least resistance? I like Justin, I vote for him. I like Pierre, he said some things I like, I'm going to vote for him. And we need to start doing a little bit more homework and expect a little bit more. Does it require an investment of time? Absolutely. But, maybe a few less cat videos, listening to these podcasts a little bit, considering some of the different points of view. We have more than 3 parties in Canada. We have more than 5. I'm actually not sure how many we have, but I think the number is like 15 or so. Sure, some of them are very fringe and special interests. I know one just is interested in advocating for animals and wildlife, and that's it. I'm sure they have some valid points, but certainly worth listening to. We don't know unless we do, right? And
if I may ask you, yeah, please go ahead.
Go ahead, your turn.
Do you think mainstream media is playing a key role to making it happen? Like they are giving more coverage to major parties like Liberal, Conservative, NDP. Like whenever they are candidate get nominated, so it could be a breaking news. And I'm sure like LaSalle by-election, like candidates for candidacy for Liberal, Conservative, and NDP, they were just breaking news. Like I'm sure you also like kept an eye on Toronto St. Paul's by-election candidacy, like or who got elected for liberal and then conservative and NDP.
Right.
They were just always
Absolutely.
being highlighted.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can look at the St. Paul by-election. I think I came in seventh, if I recall correctly. And not a huge number of votes, not a significant percentage. And I think all the independents altogether was something like 2%. It wasn't
Yeah, they got,
votes.
I believe, around 900.
Was it nine? Okay. Oh,
900.
900 votes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, not a huge percentage, but it certainly begs the question, why are all these people running in this by-election, right? And, I think it's getting dismissed a little bit as a joke. And from the people I've talked to, we're not joking around. We're good natured. We're jovial people. We don't have. We're not going to be heartbroken if we're not elected. We don't have unrealistic expectations. However, we do have a message we're trying to share. Mine is voters, please take more responsibility. And I think we'll have slightly better outcomes. I also think we need to start demanding that our politicians follow through with their promises. I voted for Justin Trudeau the year that he became prime minister, mostly on the one promise that he was going to institute some electoral reform. That was a little bit undefined. Fair enough. I would not personally mess with the system without doing a ton of consultation and deliberation. I wouldn't even expect it right away. But as soon as he got elected and he was advised that, you will never see another majority government if you make electoral reforms that people are looking for. Well, that hot potato got dropped so fast, and you have not heard very much about it since, not from the Liberal Party. Okay, and certainly none of the other parties are interested in resurrecting that idea because they all know the same thing. If you start making a few electoral reforms, you will never see majority governments. Are there disadvantages to having coalition governments like you tend to see in Germany, France, Italy, famously? Sure, there are. But you know what? It restores what Parliament was originally intended to do, which is be a forum for open discussion about conflicting ideas. And we're going to go back to the issue of party discipline has really messed that up because, if I was a member of Liberals or Conservative, NDP, any of those parties, if I vote against my leader or against my leader's direction, I'm out and I become an independent again. Personally, I'd be okay with that because I would like to see a significant proportion of independents in Parliament Hill. Maybe that's what we need to do rather than expecting government to make changes. Maybe the voters should change their attitudes and behavior and create the change that they want to see. I'd be good with lots of independence. Really.
And do you see any changes to the attitude and behavior of the voters who you meet, like, or with whom you talk?
Sorry, can you repeat that because that wasn't very clear?
Yeah, sure. I said, do you see any changes from voters' behavior and attitude, whoever you meet or whoever you
do I? No, I don't see anything. If anything, people don't want to engage too much in some of these discussions. You know, and I think I understand why. If you look at the political messaging from all the parties right now, boy, there's a lot of hyperbole. It's, you know, if we don't win the next election, Canada is doomed.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I'm not exaggerating because those words have been said, right?
Yes.
Oh, that is the message. You know, we're the only ones that can fix the housing crisis. You know, the other parties are letting terrorists into the country, and I mean, come on, we have thousands of people entering Canada every day, and just like anybody else, you know, there's going to be a couple of bad apples in there, and everybody jumps all over the fact that somebody did something wrong, and that's an example that you know, all the other immigrants are terrible people. Oh, come on, you know, that's so ridiculous. I mean, it's a nice argument if you're very focused on, you know, immigration is a problem, and if we, I don't know, close the border is going to fix everything, but it's not. It's not. It might fix one or two issues. It'll create a whole bunch of others.
Yep.
And I think some industry people have already pointed out to that you know, reducing temporary workers, for example. I have some friends in the agricultural sector, and they absolutely rely on migrant workers. You know, do we have Canadians that could do the job? Sure. You and I do not want to work on a hot, sunny field, right, picking produce for sale at the rates that they're paying. There's no way, right? You know, machines don't exist to do the job, so that's not even an option. So maybe someday, but you know, those aren't the kinds of jobs that people are willing to do for almost any prices. Certainly not for low-paying wages. So that's why we rely on migrant workers. You know, and then even some of the retail jobs and service sector jobs. The reason industry is hiring some people, you know, bringing them in from overseas, is because they literally cannot find anybody in Canada willing to do the work. So, you know, why not? Well, often it has to do with pay. It's just, it's not a living wage. It's attractive to people from other countries, but comparatively, right? But even after they're here a while and they realize that the cost of living here is also so much higher, it's not particularly attractive, and they'll try to move into other sectors as soon as they can.
Yep. And how do you see like media subsidies? Or do you think?
Oh, media. Yeah, the media role in this. I was thinking about that, and we have a problem, right? And you and I are participating in this a little bit. I've been managing the Facebook channel for the Rhinoceros Party, and you know, and absolutely, I'll put a post up, and one of the things I check every morning is what kinds of posts and what kinds of approaches attract. Get some traction, get some clicks, gets shared, get reactions from. And, partly to influence the algorithm. So, it tends to push our message up a little bit higher without investing tons of advertising dollars, which we don't have anyway. And also to, attract people, engage people with the party. You as well. I'm sure you're looking for guests and promoting topics that you hope will get some traction and increase flow to your channel. I'm helping with that. I don't know if I am or not. I hope I am. But so there's an economic incentive there, and when you have a big business that's answering to shareholders, and you're trying to generate profits, or if you're even a YouTuber, you're just trying to get sufficient revenue out of YouTube. Being factual, being correct and reasoned and putting out complex arguments is not the way to do it. The best way to do it is to put something sensational up that gets people all excited, that makes them instantly click like or even the hate button and start sharing it with friends and that kind of thing, and writing outrageous comments. So there's that huge emotional button that everybody in the media is trying to get their viewers to press. And that's not the news, right? It's not the news I grew up with. And, you look like a fairly young guy. And, but, if you think way back when your parents maybe still got a physical newspaper, that wasn't, sure, the newspapers wanted to sell subscriptions, but the way they did that was by providing information, right? Maybe that's a business that the government really needs to invest in, and that is the CBC and TVO here in Ontario, and the other public broadcasters. Maybe that's something that government needs to get back to investing in. So they're not necessarily competing with the private broadcasters in media, and people are reasonably confident that the journalists and the editors were hired to be impartial, way less editorials. Pretty much every news article I read right now, to me, reads like an editorial. That's your opinion. And no reporting can be 100% unbiased. I'm not that naive. However, it doesn't need to be completely biased either, right? So, and you mentioned that you were going to ask me this question, and honestly, that right now, that's the only solution I can think of. We're not going to be able to regulate private industry to provide thoughtful, insightful, unbiased, unfiltered news. And maybe that's a business the government needs to be in. I don't know about your viewers, but when I'm not sure of facts, I'm looking at the BBC, the CBC. I like TVO. There's some of their programming is quite instructional, and the public broadcasters in the U.S., Nova, and some of the other NPR programming is just fantastic. Nothing's ever 100% and unbiased, but they seem to make an effort, right? And I also listen to the extreme points of view that I know I generally disagree with, but once in a while, I say to myself, you know what, they kind of have a point there. And maybe they don't agree with some of the solutions or approaches going forward, but it's we need to listen to opposing points of view.
Mhm.
And I'm neither a conservative or a liberal in thinking. There's some conservative points that are absolutely valid, and we should implement more of those. There's some liberal points of view that are also absolutely valid and should be implemented. Should we mostly stay in the center, which is basically where Canadian politics tends to be anyway? Sure, that's kind of what I think. But let's just do what's right and best, and evaluate our policies critically. If we're lowering interest rates and not getting positive effects, okay, well, then maybe we need to stop that, right? And there's also a lot to be said for government kind of keeping some stability and not being very radical with their policies, and allowing some stability to take hold, so that individuals, businesses, and industry can adapt to new situations. So, and only act when there's abuses. Right?
Yeah, and yes, like it means like the media is important, like especially
Oh, absolutely, and
media,
it's very influential.
like the government funded media, but it should always remain unbiased, neutral, impartial. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right now, and I think everybody kind of knows that, um, you tune into your favorite radio station, TV station, they have a certain slant or a point of view, and you kind of expect that. But and that's all again a part of voter behavior that we maybe need to educate people with, and maybe through our public medias we need to do that, encourage people to think critically and just not accept everything at face value.
yeah, and so like Lessa, no, not Lessa, La Presse, like a newspaper called longest ballot committee candidates were running as an independent, like bogus. Do you think are you a bogus candidate?
Am I a bogus candidate? I don't think I am. I'm realistic about my chances of winning, and who I'm up against. Okay, my my goal is to perform a little bit better than I did last time. This will be my third election that I'm running in. I ran in St. Paul's and Winnipeg before that, and now this one. So, I've seen an increase in the number of voters, and who knows over time if people see me more, and there is a certain amount of resilience required in this business. Pierre Poilievre is a good example of that. He's just been around long enough that he's risen to be the leader of his party. That was actually the criticism of Justin Trudeau, that he hasn't been around that long, and he was new to politics, new to the party, and the only thing he had really going for him was the family name. So I'll give him credit for redeeming himself in many ways. He hasn't had the worst government, and again, there's a lot of hyperbole about how bad the Liberals are, but why are they doing so poorly on the polls? I think I agree with many of the pundits in saying that it's just time for a change, and people are just looking for a change for no other real reason. I don't think people are so enamored with the conservatives that they want the conservatives, and they love their policies. And Polyev is showing great leadership. I don't think that's the case at all. I've actually posted on Polyev's Facebook page, and I suggested, you know what, Pierre, you would do better by toning it down a little bit, because the next election is his to lose. People are just looking for a change in government, and um, some of the things I see him writing and promoting are going to turn Canadians off, and he may actually shoot himself in the foot. As for when will Justin call the election, probably as late as possible, because I'm going to guess his advisors are saying, let's let Polyev do all the talking. He's gonna say something that's gonna blow up and have an impact, a negative impact on the polls. You have nothing to gain by calling for an early election. Do I think Jagmeet Singh is going to pull his support anytime soon? I don't think so. I think he's kind of in the same situation that Justin is. He has been part of the government the last 4 years. So, Justin's policies have been his policies, and they've certainly claimed some victories for some of the government policies that have been instituted in the last little while. Just the stuff they like, of course, or the public's been favorable to. But he's not doing particularly well in the polls either. So I think he's also in the same situation where he's waiting for Pierre to maybe step on the landmine and blow himself up. If that were to happen, I could see Jagmeet maybe pulling his support a little bit sooner, but I wouldn't expect anything until about this time next year.
And do you believe like Jagmeet Singh is just propping up a liberal government for the sake of his pension? So it is, I know.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no way he's going to risk his pension. The government. Justin's government is safe until is it February? Yeah. So anyway, we can go into that whole discussion. You've touched on it a couple of times already about parliamentary compensation. It is a little outrageous, and again, can we expect the people in Parliament to actually make those changes? I don't know. I've never seen anybody vote for a pay cut myself, but and again, even if a party did run on that platform, it's not going to happen, because why? The same thing that happened with electoral reform. You can promise anything in an election, right? But you don't have to deliver. You do not have to deliver. And that's a little bit of a problem. And again, this is where I would say to voters, take that comfort that the parties have and candidates have, and be a bit more willing to replace incumbents. I remember when I was in school, we were looking at this issue, and incumbents have a significant advantage Okay, especially if they've been in their seat for a couple of elections. You know, if I wanted to win a majority government for the Rhinoceros Party, what I would do is reach out to every public celebrity I could find.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, when Arnold Schwarzenegger ran for governor, shoe-in. Who was it? Clint Eastwood as well. He ran for mayor of his county. Shoe-in. Justin Trudeau is a perfect example of that. Nobody really knew who he was, what he stood for, and all the stories, right, about his youthful pranks were coming out, and he was not looking good as a prime minister for Canada, but people voted, on his good looks and the name. Right, they're kind of expecting him to be a junior Pierre, which he's not. He's very much his own man, and I commend him for that. His dad wasn't perfect either, even though I generally liked what he did. Unfortunately, the way people are currently voting has nothing to do with substance and policy and what job people are going to do. It's a popularity contest, right? If I was a more charming, charismatic character, I would have way more votes every time I run, no matter what part of Canada. But that's not the case, right?
Okay, and but I know, like there will be no much impact on it. Like it means they are not going to change this electoral reform. But my question is
not
like,
anytime soon. But again, the more people take action to encourage change, the better, right? And that's what we're doing, right? We're not, and really, as far as a protest movement, this is quite benign. We're not honking horns, we're not blocking traffic, we're not, throwing eggs or anything like that. I don't think it's the type of change we're looking for. It's not the type of behavior we're trying to encourage. We're trying to encourage something that's much more rational, thoughtful, because that's the behavior we want from voters. So we're trying to model that. We are displaying and trying to gain attention as best as we can. Will it be a little bit annoying for the voters when they have to unfold this huge ballot? I took a count earlier this morning. I think we're up to 70 names confirmed on the ballot. There's another week to go, so there's a few more names that will be added. The goal was to try to get to 100, which would make the ballot over a meter long, if it takes the same format as the one we did in St. Paul. Is that a little bit annoying? Sure. I actually put a picture of the ballot and circled where my name was so people could find it, right? In a sea of independence. And maybe that's what helped me get a few extra votes last time.
Yeah. And so longest ballot is just targeting liberal safe seats?
No, we're absolutely not. It's and we have been accused of that we're trying to vote split. And I can't speak for all of them because there's 100 people and I haven't met all of them. But the people that I have met, some of them are more conservative in their views, some of them are more liberal, and it actually stretches out to some of the extreme points of view. Which again reflects the people in the Rhinoceros Party. I think most of us are kind of, to put it in the words of our party leader, we're neither right nor left. We're not center either. We're high. So we're more of a three-dimensional party. If you go to our Facebook page, I actually created a graphic that's a bit more multi-dimensional to reflect that.
Yes,
And
yes.
and that's what we're doing. It's like we're not ideologues. I think we generally believe in dialogue. Even discussions I have here with you, you kind of get me thinking about my position and feedback I get from people having discussions. Sure, I can totally see how some people would think that let's reduce immigration and now, and that'll solve the problem. But it won't. Even the number of student visas. And actually, my brother pointed this out yesterday when we were chatting. He said, well, okay, so they're limiting the number of student visas, and Conestoga College locally, famously, has really gone crazy at attracting foreign students. And he said, okay, so what's going to happen now? They're going to have all of these facilities built and in place, but no students to put them in. Where are all these students going to come from? So, and I hadn't even thought of that until he mentioned it, but he's got a good point. I'm not sure what Conestoga College is going to do with all their extra space. And, I think they had a revenue model going into the future. I don't know what, I'm sure they'll be okay for the next couple of years. They have some cash reserves, but, following that, and I don't blame the colleges and universities for attracting foreign students. There's some problems with the funding model for secondary education, as there is for primary and secondary, as there is for healthcare. All of that's a little bit busted, and I don't see our representatives working together to actually solve the problem. They're just pushing policy agendas and doing a lot of, blaming each other because they're thinking about the next election and trying to win the majority government. And, it's a power game, and it's to everybody's detriment.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. This is always like power and money game, Yeah, and I need to ask you a little bit about Rhinoster Party. I know like Donovan spoke about this one, but I had Sebastian, the leader of Rhinoster Party for the Toronto St. Paul, but there was a problem with my internet, so we could not cut back, then he did not appear. I tried to reach him again. He
Oh, I see.
and he did not.
Well, I know. I don't know if you know too much about him, but he professionally he's a musician,
Yes.
I know he just got back from a tour. So I can let him know that you're trying to get a hold of him. And he lives in northern Quebec, so there might be some internet issues because. But I mean, like he's a guy like me, I think he said he's been doing this for about 10 years.
Yep.
Would we accept the votes of a writing and happily represent them? Absolutely. I think that we would act quite responsibly because unlike some of our counterparts, we're not necessarily looking for power. In my case, it would actually be a personal inconvenience, although I'd love to live in Montreal. But it would be quite nice, beautiful. I've been there, and it's just beautiful. But I think we're socially conscious people, and we're trying to, affect some improvements in our country and promote some good policy. Um, and we're all kind of doing it from different perspectives. I'm quite honest in saying that I cannot speak to every topic there is. I would not dare to propose how to address some of the issues indigenous people have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, do I have zero ideas? No, I don't have zero. I don't have zero ideas, but I'm sure they're not the right ideas for what they need because I just don't know enough about the topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as would be the case with other things,
Yep.
but I think what's important is knowing your limitations, be a person that's willing to educate themselves,
Yep.
and absolutely, this idea of every bill that comes across your desk and just voting with your party. I mean, that's just bloody lazy. And I would suggest for people to stop re-electing those incumbents and get some people in there that are willing to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, I'm in a privileged position here in Waterloo because I got two universities down the street, and I've done this in the past where I've kind of picked up the phone and I've asked experts in different fields to comment and educate me about things I didn't particularly understand.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Center for International Governance here in Waterloo as well.
Yeah.
You know, tap on their shoulders, maybe fund them a little bit to provide guidance. And if we're not trying to attract votes just by being charming or whatever, I think we would get better candidates. Honestly, well,
Yeah, and if yeah, and if so, could you please confirm, like, Rhinester Party, how many candidates it is expecting to run in the next general election?
I can't answer that question yet because I just put out a call for people to indicate their interest to run,
Mm-hmm.
and so what will happen is we're just starting this. I'm a little bit behind schedule. I want to redo our website. It's gotten a little dated. There wasn't anybody managing that. So I got to put up some fresh information, get rid of old stuff, which is why I haven't really been mentioning the website too much. It has a bit of information about us, but it needs to be redone.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully in a few weeks, I'll get that job done.
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian would like to have 100 candidates across the across Canada. I think it's very doable. We probably have them already. It's pretty much everybody that's listed as an independent in this current by-election.
Mm-hmm.
Will probably represent some writing or other across the country. And truly, we do have people from coast to coast represented.
Yep.
Then, now, personally, I would like a little bit more than that. So I'm kind of shooting more for the 200 number, and I would like to see a few of those 200, 3, 4, 5, actually win their seat. And and I'm going to encourage them to do that through a similar message that I'm giving out, which is we need to stop voting for the same people over and over again because we know exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. It's pointless complaining that they're all in bed with corporations and special interest groups and stuff like that, because we already know that's true, and they have no reason not to continue those habits, because they're going to benefit from that after they leave office, right? Independence, it's a little harder to lobby us because there's too many of us. Most people don't expect us to win, which I think is a little bit of an advantage if you play it right. I would like us to have a little bit of a showing, and I think it would be a positive disruption in the House of Commons, because now you're going to get people that will ask questions and insist on answers that make sense instead of the political gobbledygook that people are constantly listening to. And I hope I'm not going to be accused of any of that. I try to be very straightforward, even though not concise, about what I think, what I understand, and certainly when I don't understand something, I'm not going to pretend I do and create this. Try to create this illusion that I'm all powerful and knowing, and I'm going to burst somebody's bubble by telling you that you're a local politician. They're basically reading a script they were given, and if you ask prodding questions about what the policy means and how it's going to work, they will change the topic real fast on you.
Yes. And what's your message to Montreal residents for this upcoming by-election?
I guess to summarize a little bit of what we've been discussing, and I apologize on the sun's coming in my window and shining on my face. Consider voting for me, if not myself, one of the other independents. I've noticed more people have put up websites. And if you go to Elections Canada, so just do a Google search for Elections Canada, you get to their website, and right on the front page, there's the current elections, and you can see the list of candidates. Spend a few minutes, take a look at some of those websites. The first thing that you'll notice, every single one of the major parties, they're asking for money. That's the donate button is always very prominent. So they're asking for your financial support. Interesting. People like myself, I don't have a donate button. Don't need one. Right? I'm asking for your vote if you think I can represent you honestly and with some integrity. If you think that I'm going to be reasonably critical, I'm not going to be a contrarian. I will support the Liberals when they have a good policy in the program. I will support the Conservatives when their policies and programs make sense for the constituents in Canada as a whole. I'm not going to even suggest that I really have a good grasp on all the issues that LaSalle has for me to address. I would need direction from them in terms of some of their specific issues. Am I interested in writing some bills and putting them forward? Absolutely, and I certainly would put the effort in to get some support from the floor, from all parties, and hopefully pass some positive legislation. I'm, I'm no fool. I'm sure I'm not going to be able to institute electoral reform or some reforms to compensation. Nothing like that is ever going to come through, but an independent. But you know, we can look at other things. I certainly would like to look at the housing issue and how we can mitigate that, and maybe create some regulations in terms of foreign ownership of land. That's especially in rental housing. There's a lot of foreign ownership involved, and I know that firsthand because my family is involved with rentals. Things like that. I would represent you, and I think honestly, and if I do a lousy job, you know, and I think it will even serve as an example that I don't think the average voter out there is all that enamored with any of the parties at this point, for a lot of the reasons we've been discussing, Sami. So I think that's
Yeah, okay.
a subtle message, and maybe get them to rethink things. I mean, and that's what happened in St. Paul's, right? It was generally considered a safe liberal riding, and it went to a conservative. And well, didn't that rock the liberal world? So imagine how all the parties would be shaking if somebody like me encouraging voters to look for independent candidates outside the party system, and if that idea took some traction.
Yep.
It would actually be quite amusing to watch them scrambling around. Anyway, I think we've talked enough, Sami.
Yeah.
Thank you to anybody who's still with us.
Yeah, it was a long talk and lots of information you shared, and it was great to have you. Like, I hope I'll see you again, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. If there's another opportunity, and there's some issues you think we could have some fun with discussing, absolutely. Good luck to you and Donovan. I look forward to your. Is it going to be like your first program as co-host next time?
Yeah, like it will be our first live. Like, we are not going to. So right now I'm doing just recording and then sharing it, but
Good.
it would be completely live on YouTube. So we will be on the same time talking, and it will be published on the YouTube, and you can watch it from there.
Excellent. So, and I'll trust you to do a little bit of creative editing. I'm sure there's a few little things there you can cut, and you have my permission to do that.
Okay, yeah, sure. I will see like where
I'll encourage you on behalf of the viewers.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, it was great, and thank you so much, Mario. It was a great discussion. Hopefully, see you again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wishing you very best of luck for your election.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Right. Bye-bye.